Hello dear viewers. This is Edinburgh Castle that I'm leaving. A lot of the brickwork, well maybe stonework I should say, is actually 19th century. They just extended it and they thought it didn't look grand enough. Queen Victoria being a tour of France and seen some chateaux there and thought it ought to resemble those a bit more. But chateau then came to mean like a stately home, not a place which was built with any military purpose in mind. But apart from that, the place was just in need of renovation at times, otherwise it'd collapse, because these medieval structures didn't always last that long. And there were more gatehouses. So that was the real inner defence. This gate here, with that symbol of the lion rampant in the middle, as that red lion and a gold background, that symbol of Scotland. And there was this guardhouse lower down, which is now facing onto the esplanade, and that was only built in the early 19th century. Look, this bit says inner barrier. You can see behind me. So the Edinburgh Tattoo takes place here just after the First World War. Sorry, after the Second World War. Old guardhouse, 1853. But you know, they've done it in a very sympathetic style, very vernacular. You wouldn't guess so easily that that's a 19th century building. And then a telephone box. They're a very useful urinal if you're caught short. Okay. Anyway, gatehouse here, 1887. Oh, that's quite late in the 19th century. So, who's coming in and who's coming out? But the other thing is the soldiers, because there were hundreds of soldiers living here at one time, when they had leave, were they allowed out? Or did they have leave? They would be going down to the town carousing. So I had to say they had permission to leave the barracks. Oh, and here is a public convenience. So in August, the opening hours are very limited because the Edinburgh Tattoo, as in a military display, parades, marching bands, takes place in the esplanade in front of the castle. So they have made it seem quite like a medieval gatehouse, quite narrow, quite defensible, with a bit of a moat in front of it. And here is a little bit of a moat. So there would always been some sort of a moat, but not maybe so deep or so wide, and not quite in this position. Okay, so memorials to William Wallace and Robert the Bruce, two kings who fought for Scots independence. Perhaps ironically, they're put up in the 1920s when unionism was at its absolute height, and there seemed to be very little chance of devolution for Scotland, let alone leaving the United Kingdom. So this is the castle esplanade I was telling you about. Yeah, where the Edinburgh Tattoo takes place. And I mentioned Ensign Hewitt earlier on, the man who killed the French standard bearer at the Battle of Waterloo and seized the French Imperial Eagle, and it's in some museum somewhere or other, Ensign Hewitt, and you'll see how he's interred with great prominence here in the esplanade. So countless soldiers have passed his tomb down the generations and remembered his valorous deed. Although, you know, killing someone who's not a bad person, it's not such a wonderful thing. It leaves a slightly bad taste in the mouth to be celebrating that. I know they have to fight in war. Oh yeah, look, there's the Duke of York and Albany, as in one of George III's sons, who's Commander-in-Chief of the British Army. You'd think, wouldn't the monarch be a Commander-in-Chief? I don't know, but there he is. So, because the second son of the King of Scots usually had the title Duke of Albany. The second son of the King of England usually had the title Duke of York. But obviously after the United Kingdom came along, they said Duke of York and Albany. And now the current Duke of York is not also Duke of Albany, but there we are. So, and then there's the Albany Building in London, which is named in his honour, which was he had owned at one point in the late 18th century. And then is sort of the bachelor pad to end all bachelor pads. And then they used to rent out rooms, very expensive, because it's right on Piccadilly, right in the heart of London. And a man could live there, but not with his wife or children. They're often married men, but they just wanted a pied-à-terre in central London, or often just to meet his mistress. So I think, I'm not sure if you can be there with a wife or children, or if a woman can rent them, surely, because of anti-discrimination legislation, they have to allow women to rent these places. But it's named in honour of him. Alan Clark lived there, Sir Donald Tang, and so on. Okay, so you've got some idea of the scale of the place now, seeing Edinburgh Castle in the distance. I wish I had a bit more time to show you a bit more of it, but needs must and the devil drives. Okay, so we're now out onto the Royal Mile, the most celebrated and historic street in Scotland by a long, long way. And so many seminal moments in Scots history took place along this street. And to think that some people went to school more or less in the shadow of it, Castle Hill School as it was, but the Royal Mile is subdivided into bits called Castle Hill, High Street, Canongate, and on and on. Is there Lawn Market as well? All right, I shall switch it off now. That's enough, dear viewers. Goodbye.